visceral fat then. It's crucially important. It's important to know the levels of it. It's important to get it down. Let's do visceral fat SOS.
Okay, so firstly, fat is just one of our tissues, and there's subcutaneous fat, that pinchable stuff under our skin. And then we have fat in and around our organs. And we're learning a lot more about fat as we go on. Before we were like, oh, there's brown fat that babies have, and there's, you know, the other fat that the rest of us have. But the situation of the fat is important. And we also know that there's lots of different types of fats. But if we were to break it down into subcutaneous and visceral, just for this pod, just to understand it a bit more clearer, the visceral fat is in and around our organs. So if someone was in and around you all day, you wouldn't get your work done. And that's what visceral fat, it's structurally in the way. So it's in the liver, getting in the way of the liver doing its job, etc. But it's not just lying there. Not that subcutaneous fat is just lying there. We know a bit more about it now, but it is more active, and it's secreting things that cause inflammation. And inflammation is what can lead to disease. So think of inflammation as soil in a pot, and disease is a seed. You put the seed into the soil, it grows. So disease really does grow with inflammation. So we are trying to manage our visceral fat levels. Now, visceral fat does increase as we get older, but it also tends to increase the bigger our waist circumference goes. Now, we did often, similarly to BMI, we used to give people targets for waist circumference, but I think they're unhelpful.
They were never good.
They were never great, but when
they were so low.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's my take on it. On a professional, I just thought that it was 32 to 34 for
But
women.
you could measure someone's waist circumference and it could be elevated, but you can look at them and go, well, actually you do just have a wide torso, you know. So you can actually see extra fat on someone's waist. They know it's there if it's there. But generally waist circumference, you're aiming for less than half your height. Because again, it was unfair to have, you know, a 5'2" lady having the same waist circumference targets as someone, a 6'1" lady, you know. So they're not great. So half your height is a rough estimate.
I like it.
Yeah, but it is a rough estimate. All of these are. Like BMI is grand when we're looking at populations, when we're looking at the individual. It's terrible.
Well, yeah, no, we'll do a BMI bashing podcast at some stage.
Yeah, we certainly need to.
And assessing visceral fat, then, it's a smart scales.
It's one of the ways we can do it for sure. But you can also kind of look at your body fat levels and your blood work and go, okay, so you've gained fat, and someone might come in and they've gained half a stone, right? And their blood work has gone all over the place. And you know then that their capacity, that individual person's capacity to manage that extra fat in their body is low, and their blood work is given out as a result. But there might be some people who come in and they could have stones of extra fat in their body, but you look at their blood work and it's beautiful, it's perfect, everything's within range. So we all have our individual targets, and that's why I always get people to excel their blood work and also include their weight, as well as other factors like how active you are you know, around that time, and descriptions of how your health is going. Because we do need to look at ourselves as an individual rather than just take this general advice.
And for someone who is rubbing their belly as they listen to this podcast and think, oh, I'm gaining visceral fat, how do they go about losing it?
Well,
it's not crunches and, you know, it's not sit-ups all day long.
There is a genetic predisposition, of course, and visceral fat does tend to increase as we get older. But if we do look at the evidence, it's a lot of what I call the S's. So how many steps you do per day on average, how much time you spend sitting, do you do strength training every kind of 48 to 72 hours, that sort of aim. Like 2 to 3 weeks is a really good target for a lot of people. How stressed are you? Are you getting adequate sleep? Then there's other things like sugar intake and refined carb intake. So stress, sleep, and the last
one. It's a lot of S's.
It's a lot. I have soluble fiber is another one that is related to visceral fat levels. And my final one is sozzled because it fits with the S theme. But what I mean is alcohol.
Okay.
So, and a lot of people are aware of the units they're supposed to consume or less per week, but they're not aware of it in real terms. So when I
did an app recently
Yeah.
on alcohol. God, we got some reaction to it.
Yeah, because often I have people in and I go, for a female, a bottle and a half a week of wine is really the line that you have to draw on the sand.
And that's a fair bit of wine. I would consider that to be a fair
When
bit
you're a
of...
parent of young kids, that's a fair bit of wine. But for lots of people, they would consume, for example, half a bottle every single night or even more at the weekends. So when you give people these estimations, they go, oh, wow, okay, I didn't realize it was that little. So for some people, and with every generation, there's different things. The younger generation don't seem to drink as much as perhaps the over 70s sometimes. So there is generational, I suppose, challenges. But alcohol is certainly one that does not pass go, does not collect 200, goes to the fat stores, and it does tend to increase those visceral fat levels.
And that ties into our next thing, which is insulin and insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, because when you look at all the things that I'm talking about, the steps, the sitting, the stress, the sugar, the sleep, soluble fiber, strength training, you're kind of getting a picture of maybe their insulin resistant levels. And really with insulin resistance, you have just say a starting point and look at it as a 1 to 10 scale. And by the time you hit 10, you have diabetes, but you're moving up along that scale. And again, if you're plotting your blood work from your GP, you would see your HbA1c, and that's your average blood sugar over 2 to 3 months. And that gives us a good idea of what's happening. And as it goes up closer to 40, you're getting nearer and nearer to pre-diabetes and nearer and nearer to diabetes. So instead of waiting for that to happen, be proactive. See that the trend is going up and that you need to bring it down.
Bring it down. It's the same. It's the S's. It's
the S. But it's a lot of the lifestyle stuff that we know about. And I know it can be super boring for a podcast to be eat your fruit and veg, 7 a day, drink your water. But at the same time, it's still true. It still holds true. The evidence has never disputed it.
In line with our aging, as two over 40s sitting in a room who are very passionate about what they do and helping people, you do come around to the fact that these are the things that work. They're not sexy. They may come across as boring to talk about and to discuss. But actually, these are the things that work. That idea of the S's, that idea of they work. They will bring down your visceral fat. They will bring down your cholesterol. They will bring down your risk of heart disease. They will bring down your weight. They'll do it all.